Today on the Topping Show, Matt Walsh drove Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who is calling for locals to defend their city from Trump making it safe. Leftists make a t-shirt praising the trans Minnesota shooter and go viral on social media. Tim Walz calls for gun confiscation. The new Porsche Cayenne EV is mocked for looking nearly like a Tesla. And a dresser is being recalled. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and service company with special proficiency IT security. Heck, I say their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase, with Picatinny rail adapters so you can mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you click that button and tell your friends and your enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the new Porsche Cayenne EV critiqued because it looks like a boring EV Tesla, which, well, it is an EV. Now this brought to us thanks to Andrew Collins at thedrive.com. And they say, quote, spied 2026 Porsche Cayenne Coupe EV looks a lot like a Tesla Model Y. The 2026 Porsche Cayenne EV and this coupe variant are expected to drop soon. For all 18 people who want the damn things. Again, the Porsche EV SUV. Like a double negative of crap no one would ever want. But, of course, the totalitarian government known as the European Union is bullying Germany to make boring EVs, which will also inevitably lose to BYD over in China. And as you can see on the screen, it looks god-awful boring and uninspiring. I mean, I say most EVs are trash looking, which, yes, most of them are. I mean, this is somehow even worse. It's like they took a Tesla and copied it, and not in a good way. So I apologize. Your eyes are probably melting seeing that on the screen. Now, again, this is credit to Andrew Collins at thedrive.com. And, well, here, they actually just position it with a picture of a Tesla, looking mildly reminiscent. Now they say, quote, our spy car contact in Germany snapped us a barely camouflaged 2026 Porsche Cayenne Coupe EV, giving us a pretty definitive look at the car. I still think the SUV coupes kind of look like a Pixar caricature car, but I'm warming up to this one. Someone give Andrew Collins a call. I think he might be inebriated. He says, though it does look a bit like a Tesla Model Y from the rear quarter, the lower cladding and square section below the taillights help give this Porsche a little more of a defined shape than other EVs. Not much. It almost looks like a bastardized Hyundai to me. They say we're expecting to see these fully revealed next year, but the only details we can't clearly see as spot shots are the taillights. Looks like Porsche is going to do long amber stripes on the bottom of these blacked out areas. Ugh, see the front of it too. God, they're terrible looking. The wheel design is also interesting too. The huge lip and the 10-spoke wheels make it look a bit like the tires are having huge sidewalls. Our editor-in-chief, Kyle, took a ride in the Cayenne EV prototype recently and recently liked it. What's wrong with these people? My last Porsche EV experience was a Taycan Cross Turismo, which is he says, which was also exceptional. Have you never driven a regular Porsche? I don't think so. He says, this makes me feel more optimistic about the upcoming electric Cayenne and little brother slope roof variant. He says, swipe through more of these spy shots to get a full sense of what's upcoming. The Cayenne Coupe EV, when it looks like when it bows down to bows within the next 12 months of the show. Weird verb. And yeah, these just look terrible. It looks, again, Hyundai, Kia, same company. It looks almost like one of those bastardized EVs. You're inebriated a little bit. It almost looks like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, one of those things. So uninspiring, so boring. Who would ever love a car like this? Abomination. Everything Porsche stands for. Again, you know me. If I ever wanted an SUV, it has to have a stick shift, obviously. And I always joke, you know, Porsche, I think they only made like 290 of them. They had a Cayenne GTS with a V8 and a stick shift. I've been talking about that for a couple of years on the show. There's finally one for sale. If I won the lottery, I'd buy it today. So, again, this will probably cost, what, $70,000 to $90,000. for a disposable EV that'll break within 10 years, or at the very least have a battery that'll cost you $30 to $40 to $50,000 if you could actually get a replacement, which, let's be honest, I'm pretty skeptical you'll be able to that far in the future, as EVs are just disposable smartphones on wheels. So instead of spending, $50, $60, $70, $80,000 on a disposable EV SUV, you could get this. A badass, which is a word I don't use hardly ever with SUVs. This is a 2009 Porsche Cayenne GTS. I know what you're thinking. It looks right off the bat a hell of a lot more aggressive, a hell of a lot cooler. This one's silver, which a little bit boring. It seems like, I swear, Volkswagen Auto Group has to get free silver paint. I can't but think that's why they have every Porsche 911 and an SUV. They're all silver, I swear. That's a little disappointing. This SUV is silver. Again, for SUVs, it's pretty cool. And again, the coolest thing of all, that is a very disgusting steering wheel. Like a Dorito. So the steering wheel sucks, fine. But look at the magical thing in the middle. That's a stick shift, baby. A V8 stick shift SUV. 6 gears of glory. Oh, and reverse. I smiled ear to ear when I saw this. Because again, these barely ever come up for sale. And it's usually auction sites that have them and specialty sites. And you can see in this picture, we could see the stick shift and the third pedal. It is truly a manual transmission Porsche SUV with 8 cylinders of glory. And even though this is a 2009 vehicle, I would much rather have this. Again, this is not, I'm not paid by cars.com or anything like that. It's just happened to be the website I found it on recently. Look at that big old V8 right under that hood. V8 and a stick shift. I know it's German, but that's almost a little bit of Americana right there. And this thing looks a lot more badass. The curves and angles on all the pretty much every part of this vehicle exterior looks a hell of a lot better too. It's just 1,000 times more reliable, 1,000 times more fun, a million times better at least. And again, for the cost, granted, it's used obviously. It's from 2000. Was it 9? Let's see here. Get back to the main listing. $42,900. And again, Porsche, to their credit, when it comes to their gas engines, they will maintain this vehicle for 20, 30, 40 plus years. Granted, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg, but they have one of the best track records of taking care of the customers long term. Granted, it's also a big profit portion for the company, but still, if anything were to happen to this engine, and 66,000 miles, that's actually pretty low. I say when, because it's so rare. When these do come up for sale, they usually have like 150,000 miles plus, and they still demand $50,000 plus. Because they're so rare, and they're so much fun, and they know people are out there with the money are willing to pay for it. Now, granted, I don't have that. Again, if I had to get an SUV, this is what I would get. Maybe, again, if I had enough money to buy this, and maybe, if I had extra money, obviously you change the paint so it's not silver. But again, even with the silver paint job, this looks like a fun, awesome SUV for about half the price of the EV. And this will guarantee be a lot more reliable, be a lot more fun. And also, you could bring this to car shows. You'd win a lot of bar bets. Be like, I bet you don't. Hey, my SUV's got a stick shift. No one's ever going to believe it because I think they only imported like 290 of these. Now in 2016, they had the Porsche Cayenne with a V6 and a stick shift, which is tailored to the track. Obviously, not as much horsepower. This is pretty cool, but again, this is one with a V8. And yeah, the Porsche Cayenne EV is going to come. We'll see how many they actually sell. But again, if I had to get an SUV right now, oh, you bet your bottom dollar it'd be this one. But what would you get if you had and again, with this one, you still have $30,000 for maintenance, fun, or whatever you want, as opposed to, if you have $70,000, either buy this car or buy the Porsche Cayenne EV. Which would you get and why? Let me know in the comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the Cultural Pod podcast, you have Leftist actually making a Protect Trans Kids t-shirt with the Minnesota shooter's face on it. Now, thanks to David Santa Clara. He says, quote, "They're really making Protect Trans Kids with that piece of shit's picture on them." And I'm not going to repeat his name. And yeah, they have his ugly mug on the t-shirt, or long sleeve shirt there. Which, again, I don't have much ground to stand on when it comes to ugly mugs. Granted, I'd argue he looks slightly more ugly than me. Just saying something, actually. And here's a quote saying, "Now the name blank is pretty straightforward. This name is a friend of mine, also the last name of a reminder of an old friend who is struggling. And he, is someone who's always been fighting for what's right. Protect, because that's exactly what this is about. It's about creating a space where trans kids can feel safe and supported, where they know someone has their back." What kind of moron is making this? Ridiculous. This person who took a couple lives and injured many more, their leftists are now praising him and making clothing and apparel with his face on it. Which is ridiculous, obviously. It also shows how mentally deranged leftists have become. That's just disgusting. They're praising someone who took other people's lives. Ridiculous. And this went pretty viral. Got 1.2 million views and 21,000 likes. It's almost, at least leftists are consistent. They'll take the worst scum of society and make them martyrs. Perplexes me. Why are they doing this time and time again? You saw the same thing with the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting, where he just happened to defend himself against someone who hurt kids and women, which, again, good shots. Then you had George Floyd, someone who robbed a pregnant woman at gunpoint, a serial thief and drug user, and they decided to make him a martyr as well. They seem to take the worst of society. Remember the whole scam where they had the gentleman who claimed, "Oh yes, hands up, don't shoot," when he was reaching for a knife? Leftists made him a martyr too. They seem to delight, maybe because they are impressed and enamored by their own abilities to pitch the worst of society, and that the mindless zombies will still praise them. That is, I suppose, impressive that the people are so mentally vacuous that they would support those things. But of course, anyone with the modicum of intelligence is not buying this long sleeve shirt. I misspoke. I thought it was a t-shirt earlier. Even more useless. How many times have you actually worn a long sleeve shirt in your life? Me? I believe 3 times. Mostly useless garbage. Now, go in the comments. When the first one comes to us, thanks to David Santa Clara, he says, quote, "New York Post just picked up the story." And it says, Twisted T-shirts pay tribute to Minneapolis church shooter. There you can see a link to it, getting 273 likes. Someone by the name of Dixon Uranus says, quote, "As an added bonus, after you wash it, the shirt hangs itself." In 4.5 thousand likes, and dark humor. Because, that's a high rate. I wish they take their own lives. Jason Claire responded saying, "Ooh, getting 985 likes." Chud Dudley, American Misfit, says, quote, "Optics as a concept completely escapes them, much to their detriment." And he has a picture of Polly from The Sopranos getting 1,000 likes. David Santa Clara, I don't know if I can do Polly's accent. "Hey, D, all I'm saying is that shit would never happen. We didn't." Oh, wait, no, wait. "Hey, D, all I'm saying is this shit never happened until we gave them parades and called them broads." Unquote. Which, was that the worst Italian impression of all time? Probably, but the attempt was nevertheless made, getting 2,000 likes. Not me, but David Santa Clara right there. We also have Freedom Lover saying there's no such thing as a trans kid, getting 932 likes. Paulo says, quote, "So that," I'm not going to say his name, "that piece of shit felt unsafe, so he had to go shoot up an effing Catholic school full of children. If the trans and left can't molest, mutilate, or brainwash our children, I guess they'll just murder them." Gained 1.3 thousand likes. No community note there. Robert McDonald has a picture of a gentleman with the AK-74? No, 47. And it's a quote from Sam Hyde said, "The world is not dying, it's being killed, and those that are killing it have names and addresses." Getting 797 likes. M. Pepe, looks like a frog, says, "Mass shooting rates by demographic 2015 to 2025, and they define it as public incidents with 4 or more fatalities expressed in rates as per million population. Trans non-binary biological male is 0.769, trans non-binary biological female 0.667, Asian men is 0.408, black men is 0.198, white men is 0.176, Asian women is 0.097, and Hispanic men are 0.094, in 266 likes. I also have mostly peaceful merch saying "or," and they have a t-shirt that says "Protect normal kids." The silhouette of an AR-15 getting 441 likes. Let's see. So maybe not. I think there's the gal in the picture. Maybe she's a general artist. or a model, because it looks like someone is saying that they photoshopped the design onto her. This is from the Catholic Cowboy saying, quote, "This girl isn't actually wearing the t-shirt, it's just photoshopped on her. They use these models to show what it would look like on someone, so don't dox people who are wearing it." Or at least that gal who's shown wearing it, getting 944 likes. Kelly with an I, weird, says, "So sickening." I forget what famous comic, what is it? Famous comedian. When this is the one where he shoots someone and says, "Why would you do that?" And it's a trans pride flag shooting Christian. And he goes, Why are Christians killing us? Getting 491 likes. Which, see, Jack Warson says demon. It's a girl with a t-shirt getting 175 likes. We also have Witness the Man's Ruin says, "The creators of these monsters are freaks and need to answer for their crimes." And then in text it says, "All the people who worked to normalize mental illness and the gender idiocy should be prosecuted," getting 373 likes. See. JJ Reeves says, "Maybe they missed the part where he expressed he regretted transitioning." This is from the Catholic News Agency, August 29, 2025. Looks like an article on their website by Tyler Arnold. It says, "Minneapolis Catholic Church shooter expressed regret about gender transition," getting 264 likes. What the heck? Aerostatic? Can't speak today. Which again, reminds me of my age-old 3. Click that subscribe button. It may help me in my speaking aptitudes. My first started show. Barely anyone tuned in. Well, maybe family. But as I spoke fast and Ben Shapiro and more awkwardly than Joe Biden trying to climb upstairs. But as I've slowly but surely gained more subscribers, I've been slightly better at speaking, which leads to my theory. The more people that click that subscribe button, the better I get at speaking. Someday we'll make it perfectly articulately through an entire episode. So click that button and tell your friends and enemies. I greatly appreciate it. And again, it's credit to the Aerostatic Mel. And he says 2 can play that game. And it has Dahmer. Who's that famous not serial killer. What is his name? I forget. Actually, no. It says protect the environment, getting 354 likes. Is it Ted? Is it Ted Bundy? No. Ted Kaczynski? I think it is him, getting 354 likes. See, is any contrarian statements thus far? I don't see him. Blackboard Bound says, "MF Rose 23. We gotta protect kids from trans," getting 466 likes. See here. Not seeing any contrarian statements. But yeah, I don't know how many people are actually ordering that orange t-shirt. Oh, sorry, long sleeve shirt. Yeah, it's fascinating how they continue to praise and elevate the worst of society. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Matt Walsh roasting Brandon Johnson, the mayor of New York City, or as I call it, shitty, because the mayor wants to be able to defend their city from Trump making it safer. Yes, that's really happening. Now, this is credited also to Right Angle News Network, which is the video in which Matt Walsh is responding to. We have the ever mentally vacuous mayor of shitty Chicago, Brandon Johnson. He says,
"Are you prepared? Are you prepared to defend this land that was built by slaves, a land that was built by indigenous people, a land that is built by workers? Are you prepared to defend this land?" The people united will always prevail. I need you all to stand firm, to stand strong. If this president decides to continue to break this Constitution, are you...
And of course, as a true Democrat form, he pretends to care about the Constitution. And yeah, Right Angle News Network says, quote, "Brandon Johnson is now holding a rally where he is calling on the citizens of Chicago to defend the city against federal troops." Now, Matt Walsh responded saying, quote, "1, this is treason. Brandon Johnson should be arrested, charged, convicted, and then given the requisite punishment for capital offense. 2, Chicago was not in any sense built by slaves and indigenous people," unquote. And again, Chicago, or as people for years called it, Chirac, is such a rudimentary, pathetic place, so governed by such corrupt, evil monsters, that more people died in Chicago than U.S. soldiers when they were in Iraq. That's why they call it Chirac. It is an amalgamation of every Democrat policy they want on a federal level. It already exists on a city and state level in Illinois, which I, again, purposely mispronounce as a slight to that rudimentary totalitarian state. Just so anti-gun for law-abiding citizens, you need a license just to purchase ammunition. Yeah, it's called a FOID card. It's a terrible place. Never go to Illinois. And Illinois has had one of the highest crime rates in the world. There's a reason people and businesses only leave Illinois. Again, I mispronounce as a slight to that state. There is such a dangerous, terrible place, and they've been voting Democrat for almost 100 years. Almost 100 years. And I've yet to find one business that's relocated their headquarters to Chicago in a couple decades. I can name many that have left. Same with people. The city, especially downtown, it only becomes more unsafe, more terrible. And Trump, whether you like him or not, he fixed D.C., which many thought was an insurmountable task. For the first time in decades, there were 7 days in D.C. where no one died from homicide. That hasn't happened in years, and Trump did that in a couple days. He secured D.C. And Brandon Johnson wants the people of Chicago to protest. You know what? Maybe people in Chicago will finally wake up. Again, a lot of conservatives would say, well, you get what you vote for. Just, let Chicago continue to be a terrible hellhole. I can understand perspective. Again, there are some good people in Chicago. There's about 18 of them. Okay, I'm kidding. There's slightly more than that. But there are some good people there. They've been the victims of these terrible government policies for decades. They're so soft on crime, they basically don't enforce it in some parts. And it's not just the downtown Chicago. The theft, the break-ins, homicides, the drugs, it's been spreading for decades. Even when I lived in a suburb of Chicago, decades ago, even back then, they were starting to have break-ins. And it's only gotten worse. Now, it's moderately viral. Got about 807,000 views and 27,000 likes. When it's funny, Brandon Johnson says, they built this shitty. Well, I mean, I would argue American workers and businesses built the city of Chicago, which at one point did headquarter some of the strongest, best businesses on the planet. I mean, it used to be a manufacturing mecca before Democrat policies and Republican rhinos made it basically impossible to have a sustainable, profitable manufacturing business there. Again, there are some, but nothing compared to what it used to be. And it's sad. Go to any antique store, you'll find some of the most coolest knickknacks ever. And a lot of them were made in Chicago. A lot of them were made there. And now, not so much. And you think Chicago now is basically just financial institutions. A couple of them are headquartered there. A lot of them have offices there. Boeing used to be headquartered there. Now, not so much. I mean, McDonald's, I think, is the only company where you could debate, I would say falsely, that they moved to Chicago. They were in Oak Brook, Illinois for, 60 years? Then they went to Chicago. Which, again, Oak Brook is I believe is the 10th richest county? Or 10th richest, in the United States, years ago when I was looking at the statistics around this. And that was really just relocating. Again, so I guess you could maybe argue one headquartered company moved to Chicago. But I mean, when you read the headlines, places like Chicago, very similar to New York City and California with Los Angeles, San Francisco. All the businesses they're all leaving in droves, going to places like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, where there's much less regulation and much less crime because they actually enforce the law there. So again, I hope Trump does it. Because again, there are some good people and they're being hurt. And a lot of innocent bystanders are dying in places like Chicago. But that's just my 3 cents. It's just 2 cents, but inflation and all. Now going to the comments section, one of the first ones comes to us thanks to Sassafras84, who says, quote, "I'm tired of the rhetoric. Get this party started. Time to put the smack down." Getting 213 likes. Let's see. The conservative alternative says, quote, "He's literally citing an insurrection against the federal government. Textbook treason. Holy smokes. Invoke the Insurrection Act." And a picture of Kash Patel says, sounds a little bit like treason, getting 213 likes, which, yes, but that would insinuate Kash Patel would do something. I'm pretty skeptical about that. My 2 cents says 100% agree. And you have Newsom, Pritzker, and Hochul all pointing at Trump saying, "Leave our crime alone," getting 234 likes. Chi-Town John has a picture of Brandon Johnson, says, quote, "I can't wait to sell you out, Chicago," getting 32 likes. Hairbrain says, "This is who actually built America." And this is a very famous photographer or photograph that is labeled lunch atop a skyscraper, 1932. And yeah, back when men had balls and actually worked like hell. What is this? How many guys is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys just sitting. No safety harnesses, no protection. They're just sitting on a beam of a skyscraper, having lunch, chilling. Not a worry in the world. Not a smartphone in sight. I mean, the balls of steel they have are equivalent to the density of the balls of the steel which they're laying down there. Yeah. That got 274 likes. We also have the Critical Smoker says, we don't need the National Guard, as someone is cartoon and someone's dying from, getting 44 likes. Biden's missing brain rather. As picture Brandon Johnson says, we was, and Batman says, shut the F up, MF for you or nothing, getting 50 likes. Joshua Salvador, as picture Brandon Johnson says, quote, I don't always play the race card, but when I do, it's whenever I can benefit from it all the time, getting 67 likes. There's also the mayor who's giving people restaurant certificates, or basically a license for a restaurant, actually. And he's giving them disproportionately based on race, which is a lot illegal and immoral. Vinny's cousin says blacks and Muslims ruin everything, getting 174 likes. Was he ratioed? He was not ratioed. Scrolling down more and more. Tea Party OG says, yeah, he should be arrested. Should, only if. What is that? Is that El Chapo? I forgot that documentary. Says waiting for Pam Bondi to charge someone. Waiting, still waiting. Getting 50 likes, which, yeah. I'll never forget Pam Bondi. Oh yeah, the documents, the evidence is on my desk. A couple weeks later. Wait, what evidence? Yeah. Let's see. Can't pronounce this properly, probably. Posh and Elbows says, a reminder that chattel slavery did not build a country, especially the Midwest. Grok says, quote, in 1860, cotton was 5% of GDP. The other 95% came mainly from non-agricultural items, grains, livestock, manufacturing, textiles, machinery, trade and services, construction, mining. Per MBR census data, historians like Lindard and Williamson, predominantly done by free white Americans and European immigrants in the North Midwest, 90% of manufacturing output. Slaves handled such southern agriculture, but only 13% of national labor force. They got 111 likes, and yeah, kind of debunked Brandon Johnson there even more. Much social factors, says, quote, can we send these Brios to Liberia already? Being 662 likes. Although I never heard of what on earth is a griot. Let's see. My pet Jawa says this mayor is making sense. I don't think so. Getting 8 likes. Existence is Christ says, how can we identify politicians who are taking cartel or mafia money? Getting 33 likes. The big hint is it's the mayor of Chicago. What is it? Pretty much every mayor of Chicago for like, what, a couple decades? They usually end their career because they get arrested for corruption. The last true Roman says, quote, this man is dangerous, low IQ buffoon. He needs to be in jail today. Getting 47 likes. Here. Let's see. Albino Parrot says, these only slaves in Chicago were the working class whites portrayed in Uptown St. Clair's novel The Jungle. It seems Johnson is a little short on history. Whites built Chicago up to the point of BLM started to destroy him in 2020. The shell of what we see today, Chicago without intervention will become the next Detroit, getting 93 likes, which I would argue is already on track to become Detroit. Let's see. Wizards of the Swamp says his tribalism is flaring up. He only includes a bit about everything being built by slaves and indigenous people to take a dig at his enemies, which are white people, getting 139 likes. So, well, I have to see if there's any real contrarian statements here. Newsjack says, so this is officially a war, but only leftists are allowed to fight. Everyone else has to let the progressives do whatever they want. You can't fight back. Getting 91 likes. But yeah, we'll see if will Chicago ever be safe? Fortunately, I don't think so. Maybe Trump will intervene and fix it, but let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, yeah, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calling for gun confiscation, which, good luck with that. This part was thanks to End Wokeness. And he says, quote, breaking, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calls for massive gun confiscation like in Australia, where 600,000 firearms were seized. And then criminals, yeah, went left and right unchallenged, and the good guy suffered. This is Tampon Tim speaking here.
When they had a school shooting in Scotland or they had an incident in Australia, they simply made changes. They are just as free as we are. They still have gun ownership requirements.
How retarded this guy. He says they're just as free as we are. Yeah, I remember in Australia, they locked you in a camp if you didn't take the jab. Where, and all these countries where they will lock you up and fine you for memes. But yeah, Tim Walz says they're just as free as us.
But they have made sure that they don't have these. And since they did those things, they don't have them. We are an outlier amongst nations in terms of what happens to our children. And I refuse to think that that's okay.
Yeah. Good luck with that, Tim. Thank God there's some people, not all of them, but there are some smart people on the Supreme Court. And time and time again, it's been shown that, yeah, thanks to the Brewer ruling, you cannot ban firearms in common usage, which means if the Supreme Court actually grows a pair and takes more gun cases, you can never ban an AR-15, which is what they're always referencing in these types of videos. The scary black rifles, they pejoratively call them assault rifles because, again, Democrats did a bunch of studies, and that was shown to be the scariest term when they were just talking to average people about firearms. Even though, again, a true assault rifle, it's actually fully automatic, is highly regulated. It had to be manufactured and registered with the U.S. government before 1986, and because of supply and demand, that means an AR-15 full auto that it's called transferable, as in you and I could purchase it. All you have to do is pass the background check, they do the extra pain in the ass. Well, it used to be a $200 tax stamp, but you still have to do the NFA Act 1934, so you have to do the extra photo passport taken, you have to do the fingerprints, extra paperwork, and if you do all that, you can buy one, but again, because of supply and demand, that AR-15 will be between $30,000 and $60,000, which it should only be $1,000, which is kind of the average price point of a standard AR-15. But yeah, they're not talking about those. They're talking about the semi-automatic black rifles. That is the most popular rifle in the United States, bar none. Over 50% of all firearms, or all rifles in the United States sold, are AR-15 patterns, partially because the patents for those are long expired, so anyone with the proper federal paperwork can manufacture them for resale. And it's just one of the best designs of all time, thanks to Eugene Stoner, ironically enough, inventing it in California at the Armalite Company, hence AR-15. And it's been one of the most popular firearms of all time. It's estimated there's over 600 million firearms in the United States. Yeah, you're not confiscating them anytime soon. If they were even to try, I can't but think the result would just be mass noncompliance. I mean, you saw this with the arm brace or the pistol brace issue. Less than 1% of the estimated total number that were out there were actually turned into the authorities. Most everyone just kept them. A couple of people did lose them in boating accidents, unfortunately. You saw this with the bump stocks when Trump actually banned them via an executive order. Maybe 3 of them were turned in. But in actuality, the day after the court struck that down, there's like 20 of them for sale on Gunbroker. Pretty much everyone who had them just threw them in a shoebox or something. But though, again, it was sad. I'm sure a couple fell to the bottom of the lake, of course. Again, another instance where barely any of them were actually turned in or destroyed. So again, they could try to ban firearms. In the United States, we did have an assault weapon ban. It's from 1994 to 2004. There's a sunset clause. 3 independent studies showed it had no effect on mass shootings, no effect on crime. And it led to a couple of wacky inventions to get around that. So you had some funny looking AR-15s that were just bastardized in style. But again, that was back then. And culturally, in the United States, we've become much more pro-gun. And we've had a lot of wins too, thankfully. More and more states are actually passing laws for constitutional carry. So you actually don't have to have the government give you a fancy, license to defend yourself outside the home. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but in areas of constitutional carry, if you're a law-abiding citizen and you can pass a standard background check and be a legal in that state firearm owner, well then, yeah, you can carry wherever you want. Well, as long as stores in local areas do not ban them per their signage and stuff like that. Where, again, those stores, if they want to, they can tell you, we want you to give up your rights and disarm yourself to shop here. Most people I know don't do that. They just don't shop there. But yeah, Tim Walz is saying we need to confiscate these guns. Also, how evil Democrats always wait for anything bad to happen and then to say, oh yeah, just give us more power. You can trust us. We'll fix it. Spoiler alert, they won't. They never have. They never will. One of the most mentally, I would say mentally and morally vacuous people of all time is Dianne Feinstein. Every time there's a mass shooting, she would just brush off some of her legislation. She even said one time, oh yeah, I had this in my desk ready to go. Now again, she maybe thinks I don't know. If you're generous and you think she's actually authentic, I don't. But if she authentically thought, oh yeah, this will save lives, why doesn't she have that piece of paper just introduce it all the time? She waited until there's a mass tragedy, and then she's like, oh yeah, I happen to have this piece of paper. It's right here. And of course, those laws only disarm law-abiding citizens. The best use case being Chicago, or as many people pejoratively call it, Chirac. Because when the United States was in Iraq, more people died in Chicago than soldiers in Iraq, which is insane. So believable when you think about the city or the shitty of Chicago. There's many years, Chicago and Cook County, the county which Chicago was part of, they banned AK-47 and AR-15 pattern rifles. Guess what? Did nothing crime. You just made it to be a pain in the ass if you happen to live in those areas and be a gun owner there. See the same thing when it comes to magazine limiters, where some states attempt to limit the number of cartridges in your magazine. I would also argue is morally, mentally disgusting and unconstitutional. But yeah, more and more people, and I think a lot of people woke up during the pandemic, they're a lot more pro-gun these days. I think well more than 50% of all American citizens realize, yeah, the gun in the hand is worth infinitely more than a police officer on the phone. If you're trying to defend yourself and your family, which is a God-given right, I would argue also your duty, you should be armed, well armed. Now, again, this got about 500,000 views and 4.4 thousand likes. And you finally have Planet of Memes, or as I call him, Planet of Memes, doing a meme. It's been a little while. He says, bring it. And you have a picture of a toad by a computer. It says, the First Amendment, the sharing memes, for sharing memes with friends. It's written like that, friends. Then it's a turtle tactical with a carrier plate, magazine holder, and AR-15 with a red dot on it. Or, yeah, it's a red dot scope. It says the Second Amendment is to try to stop me from sharing memes. If you try to stop me from sharing memes, getting 813 likes. Yep. That memes, again, he's been overdue for a while, but he got another one. And he has a picture of a pistol that says, any politician that tries to brand this should have bodyguards armed with this, and say slingshot, getting 682 likes. Yeah, it's another good point of the hypocrisy. Not only do politicians have armed bodyguards, a lot of them have full auto firearms, which for you and I, we can't afford. Again, if your state allows it, because the United States NFA Act of 1934, also known as the National Firearms Act of 1934, is an instance where you can buy it, but it had to be registered and then manufactured and registered with the U.S. government before 1986 for machine guns in particular, which means an AR-15 full auto is $30,000 to $60,000. Should only be $1,000, standard price in AR-15. But no, if you want to have a transferable, again, it has to be legal under state level as well, about $60,000, $30,000 the minimum. And yeah, politicians, well, yeah, they got bodyguards with multiple firearms, many of them full auto. Many of them have P90s, which I forget when FN debuted that firearm, but I believe it was after 1986. I've never seen a transferable P90, which again, because of the law, signed in thanks to Reagan, it had to be registered before 1986. So the elite, the politicians, get the best firepower on the planet to defend themselves. We get barely anything in comparison. I also have Amelia Henderson says, quote, national embarrassment. And it's a Simpsons meme with the injury board. It says, days without Minnesota being national embarrassment. Gained 721 likes. I think it's 722 likes. X Van Fleet says the CCP taught him well. Gained 599 likes. Why did he go to China so many times throughout his life? I think his wedding was his engagement or his wedding. Big place like in Tiananmen Square is creepy. Mag 1775 says Walz can disarm all he wants. Americans don't hand over freedom. Gained 544 likes. The conservative alternative says, quote, come and take them. You have the laughing meme. It says Americans watching Europeans get arrested for social media post. It says laughs in 600 million firearms, which, yeah. I mean, that might be how many the government knows about. Because again, if you buy a firearm in the United States, you have to go through the NICS system. You have to fill out a 4473, which is basically, think of it like paperwork or a job application for a firearm. And yeah, that's how usually most of these estimates are in terms of like they think there are that many guns out there. There are also a lot of people that make their own firearms too, including the AR-15. Paul Zupa also says deport and arrest Tim Walz, getting 197 likes. The Hunter says he should move to the UK. It's Tim Walz looking creepier than usual, and it says Tim Walz is nuts, getting 73 likes. Which, yeah, I mean this is also the CCP fan who Tim Walz says there's no such guarantee as the First Amendment. He says hate speech doesn't count. Spoiler alert, it all counts. Chinese hack. Also have Trump tracker, a contrarian. I make sure I follow him just because life gets a little bit boring if you're in an echo chamber. Now he says, quote, Australia has a murder rate of 2. Not a single state in our country has a murder rate that low. Even very safe states like Massachusetts and higher murder rates. Gun control saves lives, getting 101 likes. Was he ratioed? Richard Springer says, no, it doesn't save lives. You're retarded, getting 82 likes. Freedom USA simply says, we won't comply. Your punk ass better be willing to stack up, or you have no right to talk about gun control, getting 24 likes. Anza says, no, gun control lays the foundation for tyranny. You obviously aren't keeping up with the current events in Australia, dumbass, getting 46 likes. Existent Buffalo says, Maine also has a murder rate under 2 and also has the highest gun ownership in the rest of the country. There's zero correlation. Again, Australia also forced people into camps, and they could do it because they disarmed their citizens there. Going back to the main comment section, Miss B has a picture of the Chad guy, says, give up your pot to stop drug violence. The kid goes, but I don't commit crime. He says, welcome to the gun debate, getting 1.1 thousand likes, going up like a good stock. Let's see. Sandy says, they'll keep setting fires until you submit to their climate change agenda. They'll keep instigating shootings until you submit to the gun control agenda. They'll keep faking pandemics until you submit to the medical slavery. Getting 645 likes. Wouldn't be surprised. Roman T says he's the only one who should have his gun confiscated for being a retard. Yeah, there's Tim Walz looking slightly more retarded than usual, where he attempts to load a semi-auto shotgun that he owns, apparently, or allegedly owns. He said he did as a shotgun.
Fits quite right. Never fits quite
And he
right.
can't load a shotgun.
Not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought
He's
it.
got a fancy Italian firearm,
I
too.
was shooting a lot of trap because it has a kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old,
Can't even load his own shotgun. Pathetic. I got 1,000 likes. TMM has a picture of Ben Franklin and says, quote, you know what it doesn't say in the Constitution? Giving up your rights to appease some crybaby liberals, getting 508 likes. Oh, 510 likes. Not like stock now again. Top of the pew, there's a picture of a gal from the 1950s that says, once you give up your guns, they're going to kill you. You know that, right? Getting 293 likes. Let's see. Kitten has a picture of Thomas Jefferson. She says, tap sign, and says the tree is thirsty. Getting 143 likes. Which, yes, is old saying. Tree liberty must be trimmed from time to time. Get Hart has a bunch of firearms spelled out to say F you. Yeah, got a Styrog, a couple of AR-15s, a French FAMAS, the FS2000, a couple of Dracovs, Galil, G3, HK, AR-15 9mm, or chambered in 9mm, AK-47, AK-74. There are a couple good guns there, getting 188 likes. Miss B says, what's with all your anti-gun signs in your yard? And the girl goes, I like to give home intruders a false sense of security before turning their kneecaps into pasta sauce. And the signs say gun-free zone with the rainbow. It says ban guns now, which it's always funny because no one with the, it is funny and sad how some leftists will actually put those signs out in front of their house, which is the dumbest thing you can do. It's like, oh yeah, well, the bad guys know there's no guns here. Like giving them a big green light. Got 201 likes also. Isaac says, wasn't Australia in a pure dystopian prison during lockdowns where they couldn't go outside their homes for fresh air? Yep, getting 153 likes. And again, I think most of the people in the United States are more and more pro-gun. But yeah, I mean, it's also Minnesota becoming more and more of a hellhole. Do you think they'll be able to ban guns in that state? Let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have some dressers being recalled because, whoops, they didn't follow the very important safety rules. That was brought to us thanks to the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission. They say, quote, Luliv recalls dressers due to risk of serious injury or death from a tip-over and entrapment. It violates the mandatory standard for clothing storage units sold on Amazon by Love Live. There you can see I was going to say it's a pretty rough-looking dresser. Almost looks like worse than IKEA quality. And they say, quote, the recalled dressers are unstable if they are not anchored to the wall, posing a serious tip-over and entrapment hazards that can result in injuries or death of children. The dresser violates a mandatory standard requirement of the Sturdy Act. And this is going to affect 3,500 units. All the pictures here. Now, they say that consumers should immediately stop using the recalled dressers because if they're not anchored with the wall and place them in an area that children cannot access. Consumers should contact LoveLive for instructions on how to dispose of the dressers for a full refund. They say you should submit a photo to lulive12recall@cena.com of the product demonstrating disposal. And these are sold from Amazon from March 2025 to June 2025 for between $90 and $100. And yeah, they note that because it didn't have the anchoring stuff to the wall, you had to throw this away. They're manufactured by Hengzheng Home Furniture Company of China, which, let's be honest, I probably mispronounced that. I'll take that. Sold between, again, $90 and $100, and again, no injuries are reported. And again, it shows how many laws we have in the United States. I can't imagine how unfathomable and just how much of a pain in the ass it is to invent anything or make anything or sell anything physical here. Which is probably why our country's been moving more and more to a services and software and technology manufacturing or creating an economy. Because again, because of the Sturdy Act, this has to be anchored to the wall. Because again, they say that the road hell paid with good intentions. It's one of those things where, again, this is a light dresser and it'll fall over. A kid is jumping on top of it. And now you have to throw away the whole dresser because it didn't have that kit to anchor it to a wall. Which, ridiculous. But, again, that's the law. And now they have to eat the cost of, again, it didn't cost the company this, but it cost them in revenue $90 to $100. And you got to return all of them, or rather, refund all of them. Yeah. But again, if you're going to sell this stuff in the United States, you got to make sure, you're abiding by the law. And thankfully, no one's been injured. They got ahead in terms of this recall. No one's been injured. No one's passed away because of it. But again, I got to say, LoveLive. Got to say, you and your silly dresser, you're certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, and comments. Great way to give me some additional feedback. Letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone, everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.